Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So I found this vintage little hot rod at the thrift store for $1.99, and right away I had an idea. So come on, let's see if we can do it. All right, here is the sweet little vintage car I found, and $1.99. Right away I was like, this thing would be really fun to do like a Rat Fink hot rod kind of thing. So first things first, we got to take this apart. There was one screw holding this whole thing together, and then it kind of latches and locks in. I had to take my time and just carefully open it up, but got the bottom piece off there. Then the engine, that pulls out. Then this back piece here, I had to cut it was kind of like a melted weld. So I trimmed that. That came right off. The ladder and the ropes, they just push in. So the engineering on this is pretty interesting, pretty straightforward. So pulled those out. And I'm just kind of getting all these pieces out, and I'm going to start thinking through the color scheme and what I want to do. I think I'm going to keep it red as a fire truck. But yeah, here's all the parts, and it is looking really cool. All right, first things first, the wheelbase. I noticed it's too big. Like, I hate that. So I think what I'm going to do is try and get the wheel off. So I kind of just muscled it off. It did crack a little bit, but I'll glue that back anyways. And what I'm going to do is just trim this off. Now, I was dorking around with this saw, and I could not get to work. I finally just went to my vise, hacked it off, no problem, pushed that back on. And this is such a little thing, but to me, the aesthetic of having these wheels just a little bit tighter and fit a little bit nicer really makes a difference to me. Now, I've got these other little components, and the side piece, that did just kind of pull off with some twisting, but the siren, the plastic is kind of just melted up into the thing. It's not screwed in or glued in. So I took my knife again. I'll just carve that out. I was carving, and I broke one piece off. So I carefully got that piece out, glued it back on. Should be fine. Now for the stickers, these things are, I think this thing was made in 1978, something like that. They are toasty on there. I did use a heat gun to try and warm them up just a little bit. I did some Goo Gone. The Goo Gone got all the goo off, but it seemed like anywhere where there was a solid print, it just baked onto the thing. So kind of smearing this around. This is just fun because it's like, little boogers, a little slimy. Yeah. But it would not penetrate underneath the hard color, so I just had to pick and pick and pick and pick and pick. And I did this on all sides. Eventually got it all cleaned up. Give it a nice little wipe down. Actually, I got lucky here. This one slowly was peeling, and then it did kind of break. And so, again, I had to pick all this off with my fingernail. All right, now we're wiping the whole thing down. And then this thing is really, really dirty. There's just dust and dirt all over it. So I'm going to get some warm water, some dish soap. We'll let that soak for 2 or 3 minutes. Dump all the pieces in there. We'll slosh it around. Now, I like to scrub with a toothbrush, but I put X's on my old toothbrushes. So, because I have just walked into the bathroom, picked up my toothbrush, started brushing my teeth, and looked down and go, oh, this is my old one. So put X's on there so you know. I had this resin printed shirt that I thought this could be kind of cool. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, might be a little too big for what I'm wanting to do. So I think I'm going to build this from scratch. But I did use that kind of as a guide to figure out where to cut out a little notch. I cut the front roof off that was kind of curved there. And then I'm going to make some little armature wire. This is just flower wire that I got at hobby store. But you can fold it in half. And then I'm going to put it in my, actually I'm going to kind of pinch it down here so it's kind of squared up. And then I'll put it in my drill bit. And we'll just do some twisties on there. And then I'm going to use Magic Sculpt as the primary build of this. Now the reason I'm using Magic Sculpt is it dries on its own, but also the gallery that I work with, they said not to use Super Sculpey because it cracks over time. More of an archival thing. So they said the epoxy resin is way better. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of what they told me. So I am using this. It does make it a little bit more difficult because it is kind of sticky and sometimes it's hard to work with, but in the end, it worked out. Kind of just blending some clay, Magic Sculpt, around the armature, setting up the legs, kind of sculpting the pants. And then I carved a little body out of this pink foam. And I'm going to use that as my base to put my clay on for the shirt. That's looking pretty good. Some aluminum foil for the head. I did super glue these two aluminum balls together. And then again, I got some Magic Sculpt. And I'm just going to kind of start covering the whole head. I do have this 3D printed hat that's left over from an old project, actually from a lunkhead Bob. So I'm going to use that because I think that'll work. Just punching in some eyes and just kind of starting to sculpt out the face a little bit, some of the brows. As I'm working on this, I really was aiming to have it look kind of like a Rat Fink character. Maybe he's a little bit more zombie-ish. This is kind of based off of my lunkhead Bob. I'm pretending like maybe this is his crazy uncle or something. But you can see all the marks in the clay. And a lot of times I work really, really clean. But in this instance, I feel like it is adding a little bit of character to the sculpt itself. Maybe like a little rotting flesh or something like that. So I'm not too concerned about it at this point. I'm going to add just a little bit of clay here for the jawline, and then I rolled out a little snake of clay, and then I'm kind of making the rim of the lips. Now, in hindsight, I do wish I made the mouth open just a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more action, but it is what it is, so I'm okay with that. Just blending the lips in. I made some teeth, and I'll let those dry. I'm rolling out some eyeballs, and I want these to kind of be popping out, kind of like the Rat Fink style. I ended up redoing these eyeballs because in the end, they weren't sticking out far enough for me. So we'll revisit that later. And then I had poked the teeth in, the clay had dried, and now the teeth won't fit in because it shrunk a little bit. So I have to Dremel all this out. And this is where the project starts. Like everything from here on out was just painful. Like everything I did, it seemed like nothing was working properly. I sculpted one ear. I got the hat on, tried to see the location of the other ear. I sculpted out the other ear, took my time, got it looking really nice. It took forever to do. Even to match the other ear, for some reason, I just could not get them to look the same. And kind of blending the ear in here, everything's looking good. And then I started messing with the teeth and the jawline again, and I could not get this clay to stick. Come to find out, the clay was just about dry and nothing was working, and I kind of kept forcing it. And once I got that in, finally, I started putting the teeth in, and everything kind of just started going downhill. I was like, are you kidding me? I could not get it to stick. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to tear this out and start over again. I was really frustrated. It just was not working for me. And then I flip it over and I smashed the ear that I'd spent all that time sculpting. So I was like, I'm done for tonight. I'm going to put it down and go to bed. And sometimes you just got to do that. You got to walk away from it and just start fresh the next day. So I thought, today I'm going to start with the body. So I'm kind of just sculpting out the shape of the body and getting the proportions how I want it. I sculpted out some little sleeves, put the left sleeve on, I'll put the right sleeve on. I blended those in. And then I'm going to do a little collar around the neck and simple stuff, right? Nothing that's going to cause me any pain. And then for the head, I just drilled a hole. I kind of positioned the angle so the hole would go up into the neck. And it's a really nice tight fit, so I kind of just wiggled that on there. And I love the positioning of this. It looks really great. Now, I needed a steering wheel, so I found this in my bits box. I found these little action figure hands. I don't know what they're from, but they're the perfect scale for what I needed. and I don't have to sculpt hands, so that's great because I stink at sculpting hands. But I thought if I am able to put like a little skull in the middle of the steering wheel, that'd be kind of cool. But this one wasn't quite right. So I found this other skull online and I just printed him from Bamboo Lab. And I thought that looks pretty cool. There's some good definition to it. I went ahead and snipped out a little section of that, and the hand fits right there, so I'll glue that in later. But I thought that looks super cool. It's like he's holding on, and then I realized, oh geez, that skull is way too big. So I'm gonna reprint another one. It took like 18 minutes. I also printed that skull. It's the same skull, but as a shifter. But the hand is a little weird, so I'm gonna cut the fingers, and then I'll be able to heat it up with a heat gun and get those just soft enough where I can form it around the other skull there as a shifter knob. So I think that's going to work pretty nice. Now, because this skull's a little bit smaller, I'm going to add some little spokes to it so it fits on the steering wheel. I'll snip those down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the steering wheel and kind of line it up, get it in there, and then I'll glue that into place. Now, the position of the legs, the knees were up too high, and I couldn't get the arm to be in the right position to hold the steering wheel and then the shifter knob. So I had to break them off and kind of snip this down so I could lower them down. And again, it's kind of a pain, but it had to be done because I'm working in such a tight space there. So that's a lot better position. But now I got to re-sculpt the body. So I'm kind of trimming that down. And I'll get that glued back on. Drilled a little hole in a little piece of polystyrene for the shifter. Now, back to the mouth. I rolled a new snake of clay. It's brand new. It's fitting in really nice. It's pressing in. This is going to work out a whole lot better for me. So sometimes rushing it doesn't always make things better. Now, I'm setting these teeth in, and they're sitting in perfect. I was thinking once it dried, I'd probably be able to pull the teeth out, but that it was not the case. Like once that epoxy dries, it just gripped onto it. So I'm gonna have to paint around that, but I think I can do that. That's not gonna be a problem. And this is looking really cool. There's the eyes bugged out a little bit more. I'm loving that. I am gonna extend the lips out just a little bit because I felt like they were starting to get a little bit flat. All right, here's kind of some work on the arm there. That's looking pretty good. Need to let this dry before I can do some more stuff. I'm going to move over to the resin printed hat. You can see kind of the support lines there. So I'm going to sand that down, get this all cleaned up. And here's kind of on the other side. Once the arm dried, I'm able to kind of position and figure out how to get the other hand on and start sculpting out that arm. Now, it's such a pain because you almost need like 6 hands just to hold all these things. So anybody that's ever sculpted, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Putting on some little warts. I just rolled some little clay. There's some little weird divots in the siren. And so I attempted to sand them out. I used like 180, 400, 1200. And then I did a resin over the top, a UV resin. And it got most of it out. I can still see them in there a little tiny bit, but that's all right. Now, this was broken when I got it, and I tried sculpting a thing. I thought, that's dumb. So I went on Bamboo again, and I found like a 32 Ford headlight, and I scaled it way down to my size, and I think that's going to be perfect. I'm sanding down the body just so it can accept some paint. And on the back here, there's a little broken piece there, so I thought, you know what, I'll just Dremel this down. I drilled a small little hole, and then I had these little parts in my bits box, and it looks kind of like a gas cap. So I thought, that's kind of cool. Then I was looking at the engine. I thought, you know what if I use those same thing almost as like valves on the engine? And I thought, well, maybe I need like 6 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and drill those out. And then once I got that drilled out, I was like, that looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to go paint all these things. I'm going to prime them, paint them. I think I'm going to work on the body while those are drying. This back part had kind of this open hole in it, and I didn't love it. So I thought, you know what? Let me cut a piece of little polystyrene, and I should be able to slide it up in there. So again, with polystyrene, you score it a couple times, then snap, snap. It's super easy to work with. So I've already got some glue on there on the inside, and then drop that in. Love it. All right, time to glue these headlights on and snip that off. I'll sand that down. Put a little dab of glue there, and I put a little drop of CA Kicker on the headlight, and this is actually in real time. I'll hold it there just a couple seconds, and because it has the kicker on there, boom, it holds. Same thing on the other side. A little tiny bit of kicker, and there we go. Oh, that looks really cool. I did fill that with a clay so I could do a UV resin on top of that. So it almost looks like a glass lens. I'll just hit that with my UV light. And then I am adding just a little bit of black wash to the front of the radiator there, just to give it a little bit of value contrast and some interest. All right, on the body, I thought it would be kind of cool if I had some typography. So I thought like Hell's Fire Station would be kind of fun. So I cut out some vinyl, and again, I had to cut this like 4 different times because it's such small lettering and nothing was working right, but I finally got it, and I just kind of eyeballed it and stuck it down. And then once it sticks, you just peel off that transfer tape, and I think it turned out really nice. I think it's a nice little touch to make it a little bit more like a fire truck versus the bumblebee stickers and flowers that were on there when I first got it. So now it's time to start assembling this thing, at least to kind of figure out how everything's coming together. So I got the front headlights on, put the seat in. I painted that brown so it looks maybe like leather. Get the gas tank on there. That's looking great. I'm going to put the body on. And then once I get the body positioned properly, there we go. Kind of press that down. That's looking good. And then I'm going to put the engine cover on. And that drops straight through that hole. And actually that's what screws in through the bottom there and holds it all together. So that's looking really cool. Then I realized, I actually need to put the fire hose on and the ladder, and you actually have to have the body off. So pop the body off, I'll slide those little guys back in, and it is just a little bit of maneuvering around, but I was able to get that back in there. That looks pretty cool. I like that. And then I remembered, oh, you know what? I found this little rubber gasket, and I thought it'll be kind of cool to put it on this front piece here to look like a fan belt. I don't know if there was something there originally because there was nothing there when I got it, but added that, and I think that's a fun little touch. Putting the little siren back on there, that looks great. And we'll push this little guy back in here. I actually don't even know what that is, but maybe like a bell or something. Yeah, it's looking cool. I'm at the point now where I'm going to go ahead and screw this all back together. Now, must be when I screwed it all together, it kind of compressed everything and made it fit really tight, because my whole sculpture and the whole guy that fit perfectly, once I did this, he didn't fit at all. Look at the gap between his butt there. It's like 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to have to redo this whole section here. I sanded and grinded pieces off trying to get stuff to fit properly. And so I'll work on that off to the side. You don't need to see me redo that. Here, I'm just painting the eyeballs. Now, this was kind of fun. Like, even though there was a lot of pain in this, there are these little fun things where you're just like, this is kind of relaxing and kind of cool. So painting the veins. You can see on the top there, I painted just like a little green area. I'm going to dry brush on the lips. I dry brushed a pink first, and I'm just kind of brushing that on. Then I went back with a purple and kind of added just a little bit of extra layering. Again, no rhyme or reason why. It felt right to me, so I did it, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and glue the hat on. Okay, I'm feeling good. I found this wire, and I thought, you know what? I think the engine needs a little something there, so I added that in. And then I'm going to finish painting up the rest of this body and the steering wheel and put it all together. And I think I'm going to call this one done because I am tired and I want it to be done. I'm going to add some weathering here and a little bit of touches there. But other than that, Whew. All right. All right. It is done. Man, I will tell you, this one, it just, every turn gave me struggle and nothing worked right on this one. It was such a pain. But the end result is so cool. I love it. Like, I cannot wait for this to sit on my shelf and I can just look at it and, man, but it was a pain in the neck. Whew. Sometimes you got to just push through it and keep going, and, you know, this is what you get. Let's do some turnaround shots of this thing, and as always, it's a great day to be a toy nerd, even when it's not a good day. Later.